But I mean, should there be boundaries? Should someone be able to go up on that stage and say, if you believe these things, you are not part of our movement?
Well, look, my personal view is that this was an event. It's the first big rally since Charlie got murdered. And specifically what Candace has been doing, terrorizing a grieving widow for the last several months with conspiracy theories, some of them wrapped up in this whole Israel nonsense, is nothing short of despicable. And I think Ben was right to call that out. I didn't hear Ben calling for the excommunication or the deplatforming of anyone, but I do think it's more than reasonable to say, what kind of a movement allows someone in whose job is to monetize the grief of a widow after she had to witness her husband and the leader of this organization get murdered? I think that's more than in bounds for him to talk about, look, we're a political party and a political movement. We're not a sponge. You don't have to absorb everything that oozes in under the door. I think that was Ben's point. And look, everybody's going to have a right to say whatever they want. It's not about free speech. It's about what sort of speech you want to be identified with. I, for one, don't really want to be identified with someone who is terrorizing a grieving widow.
All right. So first, I got to say quickly, that part where he said we're a political movement, we're not a sponge. I mean, the way he put that out there was really, I thought, the most eloquent way I've heard anybody respond to what we're seeing on the right. I want to go to you, Shelley. You know, I know you are a huge free speech advocate. Now, he's saying this isn't about free speech. This is about who we as a party are using to identify as part of us. What are your thoughts on what he said?
Yeah, I'm going to say I slightly disagree with Scott in that I don't think we can separate the free speech from this movement, if you will. If free speech is one of our primary values for our Constitution, certainly for the conservative movement. So I don't think we can separate that. However, I do agree, like we said before, this I think we talked about it last night. TPUSA is a political organization. This conservative movement, we are, if you will, trying to define or at least hone in on the important matters that will define us, particularly in the midterms going into 2026. That's fine. I've said before, we talked about on here, this needs to play out because I think ultimately it's going to show that, guess what? We are the ones that can have debates. Even if we disagree, we can have them, and we're not the ones going around assassinating people for the things they say. So I think this has to play out long-term, short-term, and in between. But I don't think we can separate the free speech. It may not be the primary issue. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I don't think we can separate it out.
All right. Nicole, I want to specifically ask you to respond to what Shelley said, because is it an issue? Are we choosing not to platform someone or not to give them softball questions during an interview, someone who is conspiratorial, or even someone like Nick Fuentes, who is people have called him evil? Mm-hmm. Is that the same as saying this? Is that a free speech argument in your perspective?
Well, it depends on what you mean by platforming. So if you're talking about having him on a podcast or some created content that is not newsworthy, you can have who you want. We could have a very intense conversation with this elephant behind me, and it would be intriguing, right? But there are people who don't like elephants who would be like, why the hell are they talking elephants? What is going on? But this is not to influence people's votes. This is not to influence what people know to be newsworthy, not opinion, not, entertainment, but newsworthy. It's very different when you bring in Nick Fuentes and purport him to be a bearer of actual news, of actual fact. And that's where a lot of people took exception with Tucker, because Tucker held him up to be something other than a social media influencer.
Right.
Social media influencers take themselves very seriously. I mean, it is what they do. They're the new muckety mucks. They feel like the world revolves around in their hand. And I get it. They got lots of followers, lots of people watching them, talk about whatever they're talking about. But the truth of the matter is, when you boil it down to what Scott was saying, when it comes down to it, we're allowed to disagree. I may not like people who, and he used the right words, terrorize widows. I don't like that. So I won't watch Candace. I won't watch some people who support Candace. And it's okay, because she's got 9 million other people who are down the rabbit hole with her, and they're going to live a good life. But no one is holding Candace up saying this is a purveyor of truth. This woman is exactly what the GOP believes. We're not doing that. And I think it was very clear the way Scott framed it. And I love that analogy as much as you did, KJ, that that's not what we're doing. These are social media influencers slinging mud. I kind of hated to see some more like top tier people kind of fall into the trap, Megyn Kelly and that kind of thing. But alas, that's what they are. And there's really no space for people to call them anything other than social media influencers. And so they're going to fight. They're going to fight for clicks. They're going to create content by starting little battles with one another. And that's okay, because that's what they're supposed to do. But what they're not is legislators. They're not thought leaders. That's not what they are. And we should stop trying to make them into things that they're not. I think that's some pretty sage advice. Tim Parrish, who was sitting next to Scott, was on there. And that's something that Timmy believes, that we should not be putting crowns on people's heads because they got a lot of followers. And I agree.
Yeah, very good point. Although we were just talking about Dan Bongino, who was a large, he had a large platform on Rumble. He was a social media influencer, podcaster, and deputy FBI director. So, I mean, these people do, some of them go on to be in the political realm. Look at, my goodness, Donald Trump. I mean, he was, he was a reality TV star. I mean, of course, he was a businessman and all that, but he was really known for being, on a reality TV, and now he's the president of the United States. So, I mean, I agree somewhat with you, but these people do carry a lot of sway and weight. Now, before I get you other ladies involved in this, I want to show you what Scott Jennings also said about Charlie Kirk and what Charlie Kirk thought about this. This is clip 3.
The issue with Israel and the Republican Party, we haven't talked much about him tonight, but Trump has been unapologetically pro-Israel, and he's very popular there, and the Jewish people in Israel appreciate him very much. And so as it relates to his leadership, he's been unequivocal. This connection between Vance and Charlie Kirk is interesting. Charlie Kirk very much supported J.D. Vance, helped him get elected to the Senate. His wife has come out and endorsed him for president. If I may, just read a couple of comments. Charlie Kirk said he would, quote, never build a big tent with Nick Fuentes. I don't align with Jew haters. Sorry, I'm not going to put up with Jew hatred in the conservative movement in America. And Erica Kirk said, what healing factor comes out of hating Jewish people? Nothing. Charlie always would say very clearly, Jew hate was brain rot. He would always say it. And so if you believe what is true, which is that Vance has a very strong connection to Erica and the Kirk family, they are long on the record of opposing aligning with anti-Semitic elements.
All right. So, and we know that Charlie Kirk himself, really did not want Nick Fuentes within the conservative movement. He was actually thrown out of a TPUSA event.
I'm seeing a lot of let's present content, whether we connect with the hearers. And so when you create, whether you have 5 followers or 5 million, okay, you are constantly are going to look, regardless of, I don't even think Candace, I have listened to her, and I have listened to her even lately. I don't really think that she cares who hears her, as long as she has the liberty to say, she'll say, well, sources, I have sources, and she has some police officer sources, and I'm thinking, my source sent this, and so it's the reverse of wanting to connect and then present content that is actually valuable. And so if you present the content and it doesn't connect, it's not really like a loss. I saw her show about a couple of weeks ago just to see. And, she has a, of course, an affiliate and everything. And to me that, yes, I understand, it's like the concept of, okay, you have a business, right? But to me, it's like, it just seemed like, man, is it just, or are some influencers just for the money? Or are they really, do they want to effect change? Just like we talked about it, we're going to have more voters, more people register. Are we going to have more voters informed? It seems that as long as content can be created, it doesn't matter to many whether it connects or not.
Let me just back that up real quick. Free speech is free speech, but free speech also has consequences. It's not free of consequences. And the reason why I say that is specifically about the Israel issue. So I agree with all of you. you have the right to criticize anybody you want to. Like you have that right. We have free speech. But I think the anti-Semitic conversation comes in when you have mouthpieces who have huge platforms like the Candaces, like the Tuckers, like the rest of them that are out here spewing it. And so then within the conservative movement, there are, as we say about the conservative movement, it is made up of a lot of people. It's not just one group type of people. It is made up of a lot of people. And for some people, that rubs them the wrong way. When you have Candace making statements like, we aren't going to vote in the midterms because we don't want to put people back in the office that stands with President Trump and Israel, you're just like, wait, why would you say something like that, ma'am? That's not something you say when we are in the midst of unearthing all of the fraud and all of the things that are going on. Why would you say something like that? Now you're being ridiculous, but then you'll have her followers saying, yes, we agree, we will not vote. And no, we need everybody to be involved in this, because the Democrats are like, listen, if we can get in while they're sleeping and they're sitting here going back and forth about Israel, we gonna get in there. We will take while y'all are distracted. And that's the thing. God always talks about do not be distracted. And right now, I think these conversations cause distraction, meaning when Candace is pushing that anti-Semitic, it's not about disagreeing, because I don't think people have a problem with disagreeing. That's why I agree with Bacha. I don't think there's a problem with disagreeing. I think the problem is when it becomes anti-Semitic, because if everybody's paying attention, number one, the increase of anti-Semitism that has been happening, you will see the increase of pro-Islam happening in America. So as one is growing, the other one. So people are saying it's bad things about Israel, and people are saying let's stand with Islam, and you're just like, wait, slow down, or y'all not paying attention. And as a Christian, I'm paying attention to everything, because the Lord was very clear. In the last days, you will see that everyone will turn against Israel. And that is that's how you pay attention to the seasons, what time we're living in. So I'm paying attention and I'm watching how people are moving. So all I'm saying is there is consequences to it, because if people fall into that line where they actually start, because a lot of these people aren't even using their own brain. They have checked their brain out to Candace and Tucker and them, and they come into agreement with them, then they might mess up our midterms. And then when we have these conversations and we have people that are independent or maybe Dems, but they're moderate Dems, and they were actually interested in coming over, a lot of people highlight the infighting. So when they highlight the infighting, people are like, well, I don't want to be in that mess. Why do I want to go over there? I don't want to be a part of that. They don't even know what they're doing. So that's what I'm saying. Free speech is cool, but it's not free from consequences.